Whenever you're ready.
We are live.
Good morning. I am delighted to have with us an amazing person that I've sort of known over the last few years, Sifu Lak Loi. Now, Sifu is a true white collar warrior. He's been a City and Wall Street consultant since 1997. And he currently works in the City of London by day as a senior consultant and practicing and teaching Bruce Lee's art and philosophy of Jeet Kune Do, which is the way of intercepting fist, by night. He's got a direct lineage to Bruce Lee himself and is actually certified under the famous Wednesday night group under the living legend Sifu Tim Tackett, and his European director Kwok Wan. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us, Sifu Lak. Should I call you Sifu Lak or just call you Lak?
Just call me Lak. It's no formality.
Brilliant. Lak, it's so amazing to have people like you because, as you know, I've been very interested in martial arts for a very long time and, honored to say that you're actually in a sort of docu-feature that I've made called Spirit to Power, which is on the spirit of the martial arts and hopefully will be released soon. But you've been doing some really extraordinary work. I mean, obviously, to be in the city in a suit by day and then in the evening, completely shedding that and sort of entering, let's say, the esoteric world is quite an achievement because, you're a master at what you do. So finding the time to have studied martial arts must have been quite challenging, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, absolutely, Gil. And before I start, I'd like to thank you for inviting me on this show and giving me the humble pleasure and honor of sharing with your audience. And coming back to your question, finding the time to fit in essentially what average people wouldn't call a job or a day job amongst a very serious hobby, serving others is just a matter of priority. Really, it's what's highest on your value system. And for me, martial arts was a way of giving back to society. Or to help
Yes.
raise human consciousness through martial movement and expression, using that martial movement as well as a martial philosophy as well.
Absolutely brilliant. I mean, I know that you're one of your statements in terms of what you do. It says, my chief definite purpose is to inspire, educate, and empower people so that they can live life to its truest potential, which consists of peace, poise, pleasure, prosperity, purpose, and passion. That's beautiful. You say that you want to obviously align them to their personal liberating self-actualization, and that's a very, very, very powerful statement, and of course a huge responsibility to undertake through the work that you do. um, what inspired you to primarily take up martial arts?
It's it's a story that started when I was probably about 2, 3 years old. Initially, it started out with me and my brother being little toddlers or young children, not being able to sit down while we were being fed during lunch and dinner. And Dad, back in the day, was quite an avid film goer, and he was one of the early adopters of the VHS video recorders. And he was into martial arts, and he one day brought home, I think it was Fists of Fury, which is one of Bruce Lee's movies. And he put that on while we were eating, and he figured out that when he put that on, we would sit still, mesmerized, and they could just shovel the food down our throats. So it started off by an accidental experiment, really. And slowly as Dad got hold of the other Bruce Lee movies, I remember Big Boss, Where the Dragon, Game of Death, and Enter the Dragon. Slowly as they kind of came out, or Dad got his hands on them, we'd just watch them completely mesmerized. And I think that left a blueprint in my unconscious mind around that, and woke something up inside me that I wasn't aware of till a lot further in my life.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, honestly, they do say some of the most successful martial artists are the ones that start at a young age. And many of the martial artists that I've met, really over the years have all had pretty similar experience. It's almost like they were destined to do it and it was introduced to them at a very young age. I mean, those that seem to have excelled a lot in terms of going out there and having very large schools, or
Yeah.
going into sort of entertainment as a stunt person or an artist. What's amazing also, along with your martial artistry, is the fact that you're also a fully qualified personal trainer. And I understand you specialize in training particular population groups, including the chair-based elderly, chronically ill and affected in some way, anti-postnatal women, children, elite athletes, and you are also a certified CrossFit elite fitness coach. That's a huge amount of achievements you've accomplished because you're very, very young still, Lak. So it seems to me you've got a lot of very, very committed type of activities that you're doing in your life. What made you sort of also specialize in this area?
I I was just very passionate about fitness. The martial arts that side of things helped me realize that Bruce famously quoted, martial arts is like a coin with two sides. You've got the physical cultivation side of the coin, which is cultivating your body for fitness and ready for combat. And you've got the other side of the coin, which is the mental cultivation aspect. And that is cultivating your mind so that you can apply the principles and philosophies of martial art into your life, into your daily life, so that you can be the best expression of who you possibly can be. And the overall transcendence of that is kind of your, what I would call your spiritual evolution and your transcendence. And for me, the fitness part of it was where I started with the physical expression, because I didn't at that time realize where this was going to go. And what wanted to achieve was have a holistic understanding of fitness for everybody, not just for people that are whole and healed, that are just looking to get fitter or healthier, but people that also of certain demographic profiles that would find it harder to access it. So for me, it was important that I can take everybody into consideration.
Wow, wonderful. I mean, that's quite a wide berth of people, obviously, and people who might, have a lot of challenges themselves. And being a city worker, obviously, that's got its fair share of challenges. I remember sort of working sort of for corporates, and how stressful that is. How do you find that it balances your life, at work, having to give so much energy to in the evenings teaching and working with people who might, have particular challenges themselves, where you might be having an off day, let's say. How
Mm.
does it affect you generally at work?
So, what you touch on a topic that is right at the core of millions of people across the globe, especially in the West, and even the developing countries are becoming more corporatized, I'd say. And as we kind of go down that route, and technology is making life faster, what I've noticed in uh, 21 years of serving the city in Wall Street is that technology has definitely made things easier, but made things faster as well. But
Mm,
what I've noticed is, and being in technology as well, what I've noticed is that the expectation of people has also increased as well because of technology, to the point that there's so much to do that people have thinking space, or what I call mind space. And people are stressed in the corporate environments, and stress is probably the biggest killer right now. A
yeah.
lot of people are suffering, and suffering profusely. It's very sad to see, and it's expressed through stress, strain, tension, anger, frustration, and all of these kind of negative emotions that you can imagine, that just being in this cauldron of pressure would bring. And martial arts is a way to cultivate that. And I akin that to self mastery, is really having a level of mastery over your mind, your body, and your spirit, and to cultivate that. And it's something that takes practice. And for me personally, applying martial arts on a daily basis, including in the corporate environment, is a way of assimilating and applying those lessons into the corporate environment, into my personal life, as well as in the dojo. Um, the school and teaching after work, for example, has just been the thing that's kept me sane and allows me. It doesn't matter what kind of day I've had. If I've had a really stressful day, I would go in to teach a class, uh, and I'd come out completely invigorated, and everything would just slip away, absolutely slip away. And my students also find the same thing, and this is why our school has gone from strength to strength, because I am that avatar, and my students are of the similar or same avatar as well. They come from the same kind of corporate background. They're all kind of white collar warriors, and they're going through the same motions. And I understand what they're going through, so I can help serve them in the best light. Hence that formula has worked really, really well, and it really gives people a sense of purpose when
Yes.
they allow themselves to shed all that strain, stress, all of that thought which is not serving them, to then step into their higher self, and they all leave enlightened in their own ways.
That's beautiful. That's so wonderful. I mean, what's really nice is that you're taking your light into these corporate environments, which we know are so full of darkness on many levels. You know, there's a lot of corruption behind the scenes, and lots of other stress and things that go on. Negative energies can fly around corporate environments where there is a very high level of pressure on the employees to perform well. Um, you must be excelling in your work. I mean, taking that kind of energy into the corporate workplace, you must have been quite influential in terms of changing your peer group's mindset generally about life.
Absolutely, and I think it's not about doing things differently. It's about seeing the same thing or things in a different way, and because those things exist, they always have existed, but just in different, varying degrees and intensities.
Yes.
And the work that I've been doing, as I've been serving the city in a consultancy, technology, program management type capacity, and it's, the kind of programs I've been involved in are getting bigger and bigger. So as that happens, you're dealing with more stakeholders, you're dealing with uh, uh, larger budgets, you're dealing with essentially more expectations from senior management and executive management, and so there's technically you'd think there'd be more pressure, but actually by applying these principles and philosophies, for me, I find it's got easier and easier, and I kind of settled into a stride and just kind of become really playful with it, and finding being in awkward positions, just seeing the same thing in a different way has been quite refreshing for the people around me as well, to the point that some of my colleagues have turned around and started calling me Guruji, which was, I
I
thought
love
was
it.
quite funny. But I think there's a certain humor that you've got to have about it, to bring
Yeah.
that out into that corporate environment, and also to bring across the non-corporate terminology and break that mold, and show the humanized side of yourself. And that, I think, has been quite enlightening for a lot of people, and humorous and funny as well, because it's just been different. But there is a corporate facade that people wear in that environment, and people talk in a certain way. They use certain words and buzzwords and certain terminology to fit that corporate model, that corporate avatar. And once in a while, I'll just go break it. And I'll go use some holistic language. I'll go use some martial language. I'll go use a language that they're not familiar with, just to break their rhythm, and and it just works wonders, because it just breaks them out of that, and they all of a sudden realize, aha, okay, there is more to us, isn't there? because people forget their identity and who they really are and how they really want to express themselves, that they almost become robotized and a mechanical expression of this corporate machine. So it's very important that people are remain humanized. And a lot of the direction that I'm going in with my work is corporate well-being, to be honest. And that it's really, you know, I've I've done quite a bit of work with CSR, quite a bit of work with human resources, and what I find is human resources have missed a massive opportunity, and that is humanizing resources. And humanizing resources is honoring the individual as humans and allowing them to be themselves and express themselves so that they can be more creative and productive through being themselves. And uh, that way people also feel acknowledged, well received, and they naturally want to give more of themselves. So I think it's really important. So corporate well-being and corporate well-being strategy is the kind of work that I've been working on at the moment, and I think it's important to bring that out.
Absolutely. I think that is such a key area generally. I mean, in the last 10 years or so, we've seen a huge surge towards corporate well-being. And they now have a lot of programs within the corporate structures that you know, you wouldn't have had many years ago, but you might have had it centuries ago, where it was a normal part of life. For instance, doing things like yoga, meditation. You look at the Greeks, and they excelled in sports, didn't they? It was just a natural part. The ancient Greeks, I'm talking about sort of maybe fifth
Right.
century BC, they excelled in physical sports because they knew the importance of the mind body connection, and of course the spiritual aspect, which let's just call it energy. I mean, the more physical you can be in your life in a positive way, you'll have a clearer way of thinking, you'll just have more energy, and you'll feel more inner peace. I mean, those are the kind of benefits of martial arts, I would imagine.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the thing that's a lot of the top tier and blue chip organizations are going down the road at the moment is mindfulness. And mindfulness is a funny one because a lot of these organizations are doing this under the radar. They almost see it like a softness or a weakness and not really being open about the fact that they are cultivating this esoterical, softer side of human beings to really help them shed the strain and the pressures of the corporate environment to then recenter and recalibrate themselves. And so mindfulness, I think, is something that's going on undercover essentially, and I think there may even be a faux pas that's kind of been developed around these organizations in the way that they're conducting this. And I think it's something that we should all embrace, that you know there are aspects of us such as our mind which is not visible. It's an intangible, but it's something that needs to be cultivated, and everything starts and finishes there. And that we must honor that, and we must cultivate that. We must help it heal, so that it can work in our best interest. It can work to serve our organizations in the best way possible. And I think the mindfulness is an entry point to that. But it's much more than that. And one of the things that I'd like to see is, like I mentioned earlier, is rehumanizing resources rather
Beautiful,
than just
yes.
human resources.
Hmm.
Is people and organizations but especially the big organizations, they talk about, in an IT sense, they talk about user experience, they talk about the user journey, they talk about they talk about the experience when people use technology, for example. But who's ever thought about the employee experience? So I've actually pioneered a program called the Employee Experience, which I'd like to share with corporates that are interested, because I think it's important that the employees have an experience in the workplace, that they, from the
Yes.
moment they join to the moment they leave, they have the richest experience possible, so that these organizations, I believe, are custodians of their employees. They are temporary carers of their
Yes.
employees, and there's a responsibility that comes with that. And unfortunately, our mindset in the Western world is very balance sheet focused. So if if a department uh, on an epigraph on a balance sheet doesn't look good, then it's just cut, or a project's just cut, or a program's just cut, and there's consequences to that. And people's lives are affected, and livelihoods are affected, and families are affected, and I think we as a society need to revisit that and look at this with a brand new lens and say, well, actually, you know what? Do we really have to cut people? And there's a really lovely story about this. I can't remember the gentleman's name, Bill Bill something or other in States who owned an organization, and this organization was losing money hand over fist. So he needed to save $10 million. And what he decided to do was he was adamant. His board was saying, we'll just cut these people out, and that way we can save the $10 million that we need that year. But he was adamant. He said, no, our employees are like family and we must honor them. So what I'd like prefer to do is offer them the opportunity to take unpaid holiday, 4 weeks unpaid holiday, and that way we would save $10 million. What happened as a result of the announcement, and it was really the way he announced it, that he expressed a sense of belonging uh,
Yes.
with the employees, and the employees that could afford to take more holiday ended up trading holiday with those that couldn't, and they ended up saving $20 million
That's
overall.
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I remember reading something about this, yeah, and thinking, my God, what a pioneer. I mean, you just need more people like him who exercise compassion in the workplace and understand the value of their employees. And of course, what he's done now is he's triggered that sort of mindfulness in his own employees, which is brilliant. And that then becomes a very evolved collaboration, doesn't it, between employer and employees, where you're all kind of thinking along the same lines, and you in effect merge and become one. And I think that's a really, really beautiful way to look at new ways of doing business and new ways of protecting your resources, etc. um, Lak, tell me, within your corporate environment, I mean, how do your bosses find you? I mean, do they have they given you leeway to perhaps introduce sort of mindfulness programs within the environment?
So I'm working with a couple of top tier investment banks at the moment, and taking on other clients. So I'm open to organizations that want to implement, integrate, and deploy this kind of work and this kind of employee cultivation in their organizations. So
That's yeah.
what I've been supporting mindfulness work, but moreover, what I would like to do is really the organizations, all these top tier investment banks, just to mention a category of organizations, they don't have well-being departments that are funded with an employee base. The well-being work that is done is voluntary by the employees.
Mm,
But you see, the problem with that is it's it works against itself because employees are already overworked, right? They've got a lot of work not only on their desk but on the side of the desk. This is work that they're doing to help other departments, other people or colleagues out. So they're already overloaded, and they need a release, or they need a way to cultivate and manage their emotions, their state. So they take on additional responsibility voluntarily to provide mindfulness work voluntarily,
yeah.
and that's just another item of work to do. So it doesn't work. And really, what organizations need to do is invest, put a budget aside to show that they care for their employees, to
Yes.
put together a team of people that are dedicated towards providing those facilities, those products, those services that can help cultivate people in that respect,
I
rather than volunteers, the existing employees doing it because they need it desperately, and
Yeah,
it's
I
all that
totally agree
desperation.
with you. I really agree with you. That's such a valid point, because I mean, if you look at other, I won't name the organizations here, but there are a couple of very large corporate giants who have started to implement a lot of well-being technologies and facilities within their organizations, which, I mean, on one hand, you can say, well, it's designed to keep their employees in-house because they've got sleeping arrangements, they've got games rooms, they've got exercise, they can eat in-house. I won't name them, but I think we can all guess. So on one hand, they've got that, and on the other hand, they've got the whole concept of liberating their employees to think in a different way and being a bit more productive when they get, when they're working. So I suppose, in a sense, we've got to find that balancing line, wouldn't you agree, or not agree, in terms of not tying employees into an organization and luring them to stay there via all these goody things, but to allow them to have sort of normal working hours and freedom of rights, but to offer them, as you rightly said, in-house wellness programs, including things like martial arts and mindfulness programs, including sort of meditation and things, where the company is putting that aside specifically for the client's well-being generally. So that's a kind of an interesting debate, which I've had with a number of people. What I am particularly interested in with you is that you're specifically, apart from obviously the some of the coaching that you're doing in physical coaching and helping people who are challenged, you're specifically promoting a type of martial arts, which is the Bruce Lee system. What is it? I mean, regardless of the fact that you were introduced when you were young, what is it about the Bruce Lee system that particularly kept you working within the domains of that discipline?
Well, firstly, the thing that inspired me was Bruce. Like I said, from the age of about three, or as my earliest memories is, Bruce on the screen, mesmerized, and there was something there. Um, so there was a natural awe there. I was already captivated as a child, and when I started martial arts, I mean, I trained in Shotokan karate from 7 years old to 11 years old. Then I had a massive break, and I didn't pick it up till I was 29 again. And it was 3 months before our first child was being born. And my wife at the time said, at that time I had a compulsion to get back into martial arts. And my wife said, "Your timing is terrible. Like, it's like." We're just about to have our first baby. I need your support and help. And I said, I understand. But I said, I don't know what it is, but I have a compulsion. I have to do this. And there was something, I don't know if you ever had this kind of burning desire to do something. There's something inside of you that's trying to get out, saying that you have to fulfill your material mission in this world, in this existence. And
Yes.
and if you don't do it now, you're never going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. All the time. It's like a driving thing. It's sort of almost beyond you, isn't it? It pushes you and you don't have any option but to say yes. And I have had that. And I know so many people who do walk that path. And that's what was happening for you, right?
It's a profound feeling, and it's unexplainable. You can't describe the undescribable. It's really hard to kind of really get that across. And at that time, I think it was 2003. I had Google was new. There was not a lot of information on Google at that time. Lycos and Netscape were the browsers of choice, if you remember them. And
Mm-hmm.
even they didn't have any information on them about Bruce Lee or Jeet Kune Do or any kind of terminology related to that. And I didn't even know Bruce had an art. I didn't know it had a name. Didn't know anything about anything, and I didn't know any of his students or some of the first generation instructors. I knew nothing. All I knew was he'd left something behind, and I had to find it because there was something in it I had to bring out. I didn't know how, didn't know what it was, but I just had to go. And I did look around and I didn't find anything. I even went to a wushu temple. I lived in Manhattan at the time. I went to a Wushu temple even, and it wasn't what I was meant to find. So I skipped that, and then
Yes.
it wasn't until further on that I was consulting up in a midtown investment bank that a friend of mine was running an interesting project there where he specifically invited me to come and help him out or something. And I was an avid gym goer at that time, so I popped into the local New York Health and Racket Club. It's like a massive chain of health clubs around New York. And when I walked past the studio, I noticed in the corner of my eye the words "Learn Bruce Lee's martial art" on this
Wow.
A4 black and white printed piece of paper. Literally sellotaped to the studio door.
Couldn't
And,
be clearer.
and that was it. And the thing is that you know, it was for me. It became very clear now that I look back on it that uh, Bruce Lee's teachings for me was a way of waking me up to the self mastery teachings that I'm here to share with the world, and that is my spiritual mission on this planet. Uh,
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I mean, imagine you couldn't be clearer. I mean, that's a big message, isn't it? On a big wall, find Bruce Lee's teachings here or training here. I mean, that in a sense ties up with something very interesting, which I'd like to share with you. This sort of whole idea of synchronicity, and when you are driven by a desire or an ambition or something's pushing you to achieve your in inverted commas soul mission or whatever we want to call it, but your life purpose is another way of putting it. Um, we often find that when the seeker is ready to find, the answers will appear, and you were so committed to listening to what your inner voice told you or what greater energies were pushing you, that all these synchronistic signs appeared, and from that point then to now, um, it seems very evident that synchronicities played a huge part in your life, from taking you there to now becoming an absolute master.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you. And it's you know the to answer the question that you asked me moments ago, which was why Bruce Lee's martial art.
Yeah.
Well, I think in the end, when it boils down to it, it's Bruce's teachings as in Bruce's own words, a good teacher is a pointer to the truth, not a giver of the truth. And he pointed me in that direction with his combination of philosophies that were inspired far and wide from philosophers to um, spiritualists and so on, including martial artists from all walks of life. And it really boils down to the fact that um, in the end, we've got two arms, two legs. We can only move them in certain ways. So there's only so many different ways that we can express that combatively. So it doesn't. It's not necessarily about a specific style or method or anything like that. It's really about how you can cultivate your body to express it combatively, and then how you can cultivate your mind to express it the way you want to express it with honesty, self honesty, so that you honor yourself, you honor other people, and then ultimately then go on to honor Mother Earth. Because I think that is really our highest test on this planet, is to honor Mother Earth.
Yes. Yes,
And
definitely, definitely. Definitely. And one quote comes to mind. I mean, interestingly, from what you were saying about express everything you can through, in a sense, in inverted commas, our limited physical capabilities. But Bruce Lee did say something that was magnificent, which I use quite a lot. And he said, "Be like water, my friend."
absolutely.
And that summarizes everything to me. Maybe for our listeners, you can sort of elucidate a little bit on the meaning behind that.
So be like water is a quite profound statement, and there's the immediate interpretation of be like water, which is to be adaptable and to be flexible, to fit in and coexist with whatever's happening, not necessarily to resist something, but to go with it. Um, and also in terms of challenges, it's like water. Water always finds a way, whether it goes underneath it, goes around it, goes over the top, or goes through the obstacle in the way. It finds a way. So it's really also our water's telling us how can we find a way through the challenges that we're presented with in life.
Mm.
And then it goes further than that. It's just from obstacles to how you can then find your flow. Finding your flow is a state of we talk about we have there's two things. There's happiness and vision. People that have no happiness have no vision, are just depressed. They need to seek help, right? People that are happy have no vision, are just drifting around aimlessly, but when they hit a storm, they don't know what to do. Okay. Then there are those people that have a vision but are not happy. These guys are frustrated because they have a vision, they're frustrated, they're not getting there, and they just live unhappy. And the ultimate state to be in is happy and vision. That means you're moving towards a certain point, or executing your action in a certain with a certain purpose. And sometimes that purpose is just to be as you are. Um, but enjoy the process, and that's being in a state of flow. And state of flow is also being that manifested that whatever you think just starts to happen. You start seeing it. You know that it's that you could play with this idea. People go to a supermarket car park and say, "I want to find a car parking space," and they find one in a few seconds. But the moment you say, "Oh, there's no car parking," you're not going to find any. And so when you're in the flow, everything just kind of happens. You talked about synchronicity earlier on, um, that aspect of it. And then there was the kind of transcendental aspect of Be Like Water, which is our cosmos is water. We are water. 70% plus of our makeup is water. Our memories are stored in water. There's experiments by. I was lucky enough to meet Dr. Masaru Emoto, and he did lots of experiments with how water captures emotions, captures thoughts, captures music, captures words, and it can express that in its crystalline structure. And there is something far greater going on with water. Even the moon and the effect it has on the planet and our energies is water based. We are water beings. Our cosmos is water, and there is a far greater message in Be Like Water than just flowing and just being adaptable. So um, it's multi-tiered meanings on that Be Like Water aspect, and I do go to elaborate on that a bit in the book to a
Yeah.
certain degree, to help people understand that. And also, to be like water, you need to understand what water is. And people just think it's a translucent liquid that you drink to stay hydrated and survive, but there's something far greater in us, that is water.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. And in fact, we might even go as far as to say, as obviously working with quantum thinking, water is the greater aspect of life, because water is life. But on the same level, if you go even deeper, there is nothing there. 99.99999% nothing there. So we are all just energy. And of course, what martial arts does is it uses that energy, or what we call the chi, or the life force, and it really focuses it and consolidates it in a positive way that we can use it. And of course, martial arts can be used negatively. It's been used in times of war, and also for your own well-being and your own strength and for self-defense. So it's such an interesting and complex world that we live in terms of all the elements. And I love it that you are so committed to using natural ways to enhance the lifestyle that we have currently, which is so much steeped in technology and almost, materialistic, not always in a good way. We've kind of concretized our existence, haven't we? We've moved quite far away from nature.
That's
You're bringing us back into it. And that leads me on to obviously you mentioned your book, and I was going to ask you about that. You've published a spectacular book called Master Your Life, which is for the non-martial artist as much as it is for the martial artist, whether you're a Bruce Lee fan, or a martial philosopher, or simply a martial arts and action movie buff, right? You're covering within that the 9 stages of martial mind power. Are you able just very briefly, just in bullet points, to kind of let us know what those stages are? Because I'd love to be able to introduce our listeners to the book, and at the end of it, obviously, we'll give some details as to how they can find that book.
Absolutely, absolutely. But before going to that, I think what I'd like to share is um, everything. It always did exist, exists now, and will continue to exist after us. And just like the information in the book, everything crossed my path uh, in a synchronous way. And so the book is a culmination of messages and information that was sent to me that was um, what I believe was sent to me to be represented in a certain way to help people. And what was given to me through me was these 9 chapters. And these 9 chapters, or these 9 steps of self mastery, what I call the art of martial mind power, that is using the martial mindset to step into your true, authentic, highest self, and your true power is is a process of self mastery, and self mastery is really, Bruce called it self actualization or self realization, is to be the best you can be and really reveal who you really are. Yeah, Zen Buddhists talk about this idea is what is your original face before you were born, you know,
Yeah.
and it's about discovering that. So self mastery, when you start going down that road and you start becoming aware what it really is and who you really are, your true essence, or uh, what I would call your original truth, um, these 9 steps helped me, and it's just my way of sharing and giving that back. So the first step is you can't really do anything until you stop the chaos and the cloudiness in your mind. So
Yeah.
the first step is stillness. The second step is, then once you've kind of calibrated and calmed yourself down, then you need to be able to start to receive new learnings. And we need to get ourselves out of the way. We need to get our egos out of the way. We need to empty our teacup. So that's the second stage. The third stage is possess an eagle eye, and this is quite often we look really hard, but we can't see solution, or we can't see the way, and it's really about to become aware and become switched on, but without looking. So I really say, look, don't look, see. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's empty your teacup, and then sorry, that's possess an eagle eye. Then we start looking at building up your self confidence and self belief in order to move forward. So that I call that process, part of it I call think and become. You have to have a self belief that you can do whatever it is you're setting out to do, and think and become is that stage. Uh, Stage 5 is once you start stepping forward, there there presents itself an innate fear. And that innate fear is a physiological response. It's just adrenaline. It's just like hunger. It's just like thirst. It's a physiological response. We're all going to feel it. And we really need to cultivate that in ourselves so we can get used to it. So it doesn't freak us out. It doesn't shock us. Doesn't cause us to freeze, but allows us to either fight or flight. In other words, move forwards. Flight to run or to step forwards, or fight is to, again, remove obstacles and keep moving forwards. And that step is called wata, as in Bruce Lee's, key ice cream. So that's about really turning your fear into fuel and conquering that.
Yeah.
Then after that, we start to move into from an internal process to an external process. We start externalizing. So the next step is honestly express yourself, and this is uh, that stage is really about being able to communicate your innermost feelings, your innermost thoughts with congruency and an ecology. So you can say the things that you want to say, but say them in a way that you don't offend people. Because a lot of times people will say or not say things, or change what they say or want to say and end up saying the wrong thing, and they create dishonesty with themselves, and therefore they're going to create dishonesty with everybody else. So people start then creating an inner and outer conflict. So honestly express yourself is really say what you mean with with honor and respect.
Beautiful.
And then after that we look at um, honestly express yourself.
I think it's the water. Be like water
Be
from
like
Lak
water.
Now. Yeah.
So be like water is finding your flow. It's just
Mm.
it's literally finding your flow, getting into that state where anything you think, you start manifesting it. Everything you feel, you start manifesting and really being buoyant with life. Not really struggling, not straining, because when you're flowing, there is no strain. You're buoyant, you're floating. You're not. There's no drowning, and there's not no drowning. You're just are submerged in the cosmos, moving in whichever direction the currents will take you in, and you're just happy with it. But you're achieving whatever you want to achieve, and everything's just happening in divine perfection, and is trying to get yourself into that state. And a lot of people will recognize not being in the flow by being blocked, whether there's an energy block or something stopping them, or whether it's something inside of them or something tangible outside of them, wherever it might be. People will recognize that aspect. And if that's happening, then you're not in the flow. And the way to get into the flow is to absorb and dissolve that. So that's find your flow. Then you've got power slide forwards. And that is really about it comes down to really start revealing who you are, and realizing that everybody's got strengths and everybody's got what people refer as weaknesses, the things that they're not so good at. But it's really about using what you've got and understanding why you've been given what you've got so that you can use that to your maximum advantage. But also, I incorporate the chief definite aim in that as well. And the chief definite aim is important because it helps us understand what our mission is, and how we're going to execute that through our lives, and what is it that we want out of it. So is revealing that essence, and really going through that exercise of that mental exercise or that spiritual exercise of looking deeper within to understand the connections, and also trying to create a congruency in your life, with everything that's been given to you. And then
Beautiful.
the
Absolutely. Sorry.
sorry, cool. And the last step is
Yeah.
stay ahead, and stay ahead. Just give me 1 second, go. And the last step is stay ahead, and the stay ahead is really about uh, understanding your rhythm. Everybody's got a rhythm in life, but what tends to happen is when your rhythm is disrupted, so you what Bruce would have called broken rhythm, you people tend to be derailed and really seldom find it hard to then get back on track. And
Yes.
getting back on track becomes quite a challenge because people don't understand how to do that.
Yeah.
So it's understanding when you are derailed how you can re-rail, and ultimately discover your own rhythm of your life, and then just dance with it. As I say, discover your own tune and then just dance to it. So
Beautiful.
that's a process. There is a hidden chapter which is an audio book, uh, which is it's a guided meditation essentially, and that 10th chapter is essentially what everybody starts and finishes with, and it's called Learn the Art of Dying, and this is a surrender before, during, and after
Beautiful.
to everything that is. You can't really achieve anything unless you surrender to everything, and
Beautiful.
accept a defeat
Mm.
before you start, and then the only thing left to do is to do your best.
Oh, I love it. That's so profound. And, I haven't read the book yet, and I'm really looking forward to getting a signed copy from you, Lack. And how we can entice our listeners to actually purchase this book. Is there a web link or anything that they can
Yes,
go to?
absolutely. So everything's available on marshallmindpower.com. So
marshallmindpower.com.
that's correct.
Brilliant.
That's
All
correct.
one word, yeah?
All one word. And
That,
the books on there, the 9 stage programs on there.
yeah.
So all of the information is available on there. So it's very
Wow. Looking forward to actually getting my teeth into that, and hoping that we can share it a lot on social media, because it is a book for the times and very powerful. And I must say, it's been absolutely an honor to have you with us and to sort of share your philosophies, and to really see that there are warriors of light like yourself out there who are really helping to shift people and bring people back to their true selves. And it's not a complicated process. It's about just being disciplined, isn't it? It's just about being focused, being disciplined, being willing to go with the flow, being willing to surrender to something greater than ourselves, while still orchestrating our lives with focus, which is ultimately the most perfect form of co-creation. And something that I'd like to just a little surprise for you is the Radio.W.O.R.K.S platform also has what we call the Stardust Awards, and they're being held on the 18th and 19th of November at a beautiful hotel in central London. And there's going to be lots and lots of people there, and a lot of nominees for having done great achievements in their lives. And I'm delighted to say, Lak, that you've actually just been nominated for a Stardust Award, which you'll know further information about. But I've literally just
Oh
had a
wow.
ting on my phone, and the founder wanted you to know that they're so impressed by this interview that they'd like to nominate you.
Oh wow. I'm humbled. I'm so humbled.
Well,
No words.
Well, they'll let you know more details about it, but it's very, very well deserved. And at another point, I'd love to invite you back and to talk more to you, because it is so mesmerizing, the subject, and obviously an area that's connected to the work that I do as well. But to listen to people who are doing it day in, day out, and motivating other people, that to me is true mastery. Not just holding that energy for yourself, but you are going out and disseminating that information, sharing it with people, and in effect, absolutely radically changing uh, people's mindsets and their lives. So thank you so much
Thank you.
for being with us.
Thank you for allowing me to share. It's been a humble honor and pleasure, and I hope the listeners can take something of value away from this. And
I hope
if
so.
I was to give one little tip
Yes.
is Bruce. My favorite Bruce quote of all time is simply to simplify. If things are too complicated, it's probably because they are. So just simplify it.
Right.
Anything, make anything achievable. Break it down to the smallest actionable unit, which is achievable. So simply to simplify, and I think that's the way I've kind of really expressed kind of the process, so people can implement it in a very simple way, and hopefully people can take something of value away from this radio show.
Beautiful. I'm sure many people will, and that's such a profound way to end it as well. And a message for life, really. We do tend to make things complex, and um, people are walking around in their heads all the time. But like you said, everything ultimately it can be so simple. And even if it's just sit and breathe, which is so simple, we forget to do that, don't we? We take it for granted. But something so simple as just sitting and breathing and being in the present moment is enough to make you feel connected again to everything, and not feel so overwhelmed, and give you the space in your mind to start taking those steps towards achieving everything that you were born to do. So
That,
thank you again. Thank you, and blessings for a wonderful week.
and thank you so much, and to all your listeners.
Thank you. Bye bye now, Lak.
Okay, thank you. Bye.